So I'm going to go real quickly here through some values of the Mendenhall Refuge at the uppermost level. I think anybody who's been in Juneau and cruised back and forth or actually gone out into the wetlands for one reason or another knows that it's a very important bird area. Well, it's actually been designated a globally important bird area. And we have a speaker later in the program to talk a little bit about exactly what that means. But it's a very important spot in a chain of places where birds land on their way north and south. And it's a habitat that is unique within the local region. It's not something that's easily found elsewhere. It's not found elsewhere close by. The values are high enough that most of what's left of the Mendenhall wetlands was declared by the legislature as a state game refuge, 40 years ago or so in that neighborhood. And that was not put in place as a placeholder for it to be empty land that could just be developed when the opportunity arose. It's there because of the values in that refuge in terms of producing and protecting wildlife and fish of all sorts. It's good fish habitat, it's rearing habitat, and nursery habitat, and there are populations of fish from as far away as Haines that use the Mendenhall Refuge for some portion of their life cycle. There are bait fish that are produced at the mouth of the Mendenhall River that, for instance, go out and feed the whales that are a pretty big deal for our economy these days. So this refuge looks quiet when you look at it, and most of you, I'm probably preaching to the choir a little bit, but you look at that refuge and it appears to be quiet, but it is a churning factory of fish and wildlife. And it's not something that we should jeopardize without care. It's very rare salt marsh and marsh habitat. We'll see some maps later, but there's, as I said before, I guess there's nothing like it anywhere nearby, and there's nothing that can easily be used to replace it if we degrade it to the point that it's no longer supporting what it supports now. Viewshed. Viewshed's not exactly in the wheelhouse of people on the study group, but as any citizen of Juneau or any visitor to Juneau knows, the view across the refuge as you go out Egan, as you come in from the airport, as you are on the North Douglas Highway, it's pretty significant in terms of how people feel about the area. The refuge and the wetlands, in a bigger sense, are very important for things like birding, watching large and small mammals. It serves as a corridor between the mainland and Douglas Island for bears and wolves and deer to work back and forth. Recreational value, there's many people who walk dogs or just walk for exercise, bicycle for exercise. Hunting, it's the only place you can, it's the only major place where you can just walk to around Juneau and engage in waterfowl hunting without needing an airplane or a boat. It's just a great place to be out and watching the world. And wetlands are known to be good for things like filtering flowing water and mitigating floods and so forth. So the concerns that the study group has with the way this document was put together and the proposals that it made, we'll talk about just a couple of them here. 40% or so of the low wetlands within the Mendenhall drainage have already been affected or degraded by man's activity. And just as some examples, we've got the embankment for the Egan Expressway. We have an airport plopped right out there in the middle of the wetlands, and it's about the only place you can have an airport around here. There's continued incremental loss of wetlands to development, and it's just a hardly noticeable nibbling away. Here's an example you're all familiar with, and We have a somewhat natural wetland field, and now we have a filled thing, and this was a permitted activity. It's not like it was illegal or anything, but it's an example of how you can slowly nibble away until you don't have a viable corpus of a wetland refuge. And this is just the end of this little part, and it's an overview, and it gives you an idea. We not only have road embankments and airports, we have these sand islands from the dredging back in the day. Human development is encroaching on it. The refuge is still very productive, but we need to be careful if we want it to continue to produce the types of resources that Alaskans really are proud of having.